A political earthquake is shaking China. The Xie family is under investigation. The leader's closest allies are falling one after another. The Yu Menglong case is resurfacing. And reports about the rejuvenation practices of certain Chinese elites are beginning to crack. This story, as the program presents it, is broader and more complex than many imagined. The episode opens with the voice of Catherine Hu, host of Final War, who places the viewer before a series of developments considered decisive. The alleged figures who would have been behind the so-called Yu Menglong case, members of Xi's innermost loyal circle and his younger brother, Shi Yuanping, have reportedly become the subjects of investigation as a result of that file. According to the narrative, their downfall is only a matter of time. In parallel, the political earthquake related to the Xie family has intensified. For the narrator, this reflects the growing strength of the voices for justice, both inside China and abroad, which use the Yu Menglong case as a point of leverage. The central idea conveyed is that the pressure of public opinion, your voice, my voice, and the global outcry, is already pushing China's history into a new phase. The discourse presents this moment as one of the most important political transformations in the country in centuries. Hence the insistence on continuing to expose the truth, spreading it, and stopping the abuses, with an explicit call to share the content after watching the video. From that general framework, the narration introduces a twist. The question of why so many celebrities linked to the Yu Menglong case have suddenly appeared looking much younger. Now it is suggested there may be an explanation. In the final part of the program, there is an announcement about exposing a practice that, according to the narrative, is spreading among certain elites, something presented as even more disturbing than blood replacement treatments. The main accusation focuses on the alleged extraction of bone marrow from babies kept in captivity. Before reaching this point, the episode returns to the political chessboard of Beijing with a key question. Where are Cai Qi and Wang Xiaohong? Cai Qi, described as an enforcer, gatekeeper, and head of the general office, was reportedly last seen on November 8th, accompanying Xie during an inspection tour in Guangdong province. On that trip, they are said to have visited together the Yuanping family memorial hall, a symbolic gesture that evoked the historical role of the Wei clan in supporting the Xie family. However, the next day, when Xie appeared at the opening ceremony of national games in Guangzhou, Cai Qi was no longer there. In his place, according to official images, stood General Zhang Yusa, a figure who had not been expected in that role. From that moment on, Cai reportedly disappeared completely from the public scene. In the context of the Chinese political system, for the head of Xi's political office to break protocol in the middle of an official trip is hardly interpreted as a simple schedule adjustment. In general, such a rupture is read as a sign of an urgent matter of a political, personal, or disciplinary nature. After 11 days of absence and a growing wave of questions inside and outside the country, Cai finally reappeared. On November 20th, the Communist Party held a symposium in the Great Hall of the People to commemorate the 110th anniversary of former leader Hu Yaobang's birth. Both Xie and Cai Qi were present. Does that joint appearance mean that Cai was never in trouble? The program responds cautiously. Not so fast. The piece then shifts its focus to the disappearance of another key figure, Wang Xiaohong. If Cai's absence was unsettling, Wang's temporary disappearance was presented as even more decisive. Wang controls the police, the state security system, counter-espionage operations, sensitive archives, and surveillance networks. In short, he controls a substantial part of the infrastructure through which a modern authoritarian system exercises internal control. According to the program, few people would know as much about Xi's secrets as he does. On November 9th, Wang reportedly appeared briefly at the opening ceremony of the national games. After that, there was silence. For 9 days. One additional detail is mentioned. The official website of the Ministry of Public Security reportedly did not record his presence at that event. Updates are said to have stopped as of November 8th. After 8 days of public absence, Wang Xiaohong reportedly reappeared discreetly at the Central Conference on Governing the Country, according to the law held on November 18th. In the footage, he is seen in the audience with his head lowered and taking notes. According to the program's analysis, what stands out is not only his unusually reserved attitude, but also the absence of Cai and Cai Qi. Both of them usually lead that type of meeting, with Cai as chairman of the Commission for Governing according to the law and Cai as his deputy. The fact that neither of the two attended, the program emphasizes, would have great political significance. Does Wang's reappearance mean that his situation is resolved? The program maintains the opposite. His current position is described as high risk. During the period in which Wang was missing, specifically on November 15th, the authorities announced the death of Dong Yijun, deputy chief of Beijing police and former principal assistant to Wang Xiaohong. According to the official version, Dong had died weeks earlier, on October 21st, but he was only publicly declared a martyr almost 25 days later. In the context of the Chinese system, such a delay in communicating the death of an official of that rank is presented as a warning sign. The narration also highlights another fact. October 21st, the date of Dong's death, coincided exactly with the second day of the fourth plenum of the Central Committee, a particularly sensitive moment in the political calendar. The question being asked is inevitable. Was Dong's death in some way connected to what was happening at the plenum? The narrative maintains that the Yu Menglong case provided the party elders with a point of entry because, it is claimed, the central figures behind that crime were precisely Wang Xiaohong and Cai. If someone wanted to weaken the core of Cai's political team, the most effective route would be to start with Wang. Although his formal rank is lower, with Wang at the level of state councilor and Cai as a member of the Politburo Standing Committee, his functional position is considered much more critical. His fall would theoretically create less noise and more impact. Within that framework, the program states that it was predictable that party veterans would turn to Dong Yijun as deputy chief of Beijing police to help investigate the Yu Menglong case. And if ultimately Wang were to be brought down, it is asserted that Cai would have reason to feel extremely uneasy. The collapse of the political and administrative structure that supported Cai would already be underway. In that scenario, Cai would no longer be facing a simple transition of power, but the possibility of being held accountable and losing the ability to stir the political waters in the future. According to reliable sources inside Beijing cited by the program, Wang's principal assistant, Dong Yun, had been suspected of helping to cover up the truth of the Yu Menglong case. His sudden death during the criminal investigation reportedly led to both Wang Xiaohong and Cai being required to assist in the investigation. From that point of view, their striking disappearances from the public scene would be framed within that process. The investigation would still be open, and there would be no final conclusion. Dong Yun died on October 21st, and on November 15th, Chen Wenqing, the top official of the Political and Legal Affairs Commission, suddenly declared him a martyr. The program interprets this posthumous recognition as an attempt to cover up what really happened. At the same time, it is mentioned that another important figure related to the Yu Menglong case, Cai's younger brother, Yuanping, had been identified as a suspect within the same investigation. At this point, a fundamental question arises. If Cai Qi and Wang Xiaohong are already under scrutiny, why can they still appear at public events? The explanation offered by the narrator refers back to something that, she indicates, has been described in previous episodes. It is the way in which the current central management team operates. This group continues to place Cai, Cai, and Wang on the public stage not to display real power, but to maintain appearances, project confidence, and confuse internal and external observers. What is being sought, the program claims, is time. Time to manage a controlled transition in which the faction linked to Cai gradually withdraws and a reformist bloc takes over. The main fear is to avoid the Communist Party's ship from sinking suddenly, as happened with the Soviet Union. According to this reading, the army has paid a high price during the last year to weaken Shea's position. More than half of the top military commanders have been removed, with a severe impact on morale and combat capacity. The party veterans consider that a new purge campaign, as extensive as the one already carried out within the armed forces, would be unsustainable for the regime if it were now applied to the entire civil apparatus. Therefore, a surgical approach would have been adopted. The objective is to dismantle Shea's network within the party and the state step by step, with caution, in order to avoid an abrupt collapse. However, when it comes to the Xie family, the narrative maintains that the elders have shown much less restraint. With a single blow, it is claimed, they cut the family's political succession line. After the fourth plenum in October, the Can region reportedly became the first epicenter of the quake, with political intensity metaphorically compared to an earthquake of more than magnitude 8. Xi'an, known in ancient times as Chang'an, is described as the city at the geographical center of China, one of the four great historic capitals, and the political, economic, cultural, transportation, health, and educational hub of the Northwest. It is also the homeland of Shi Zhongxun, Shea's father, and the place where Xie himself lived as a young man sent to the countryside. For decades, this region functioned as the political base of the Xie family. Xie is said to regard Shanxi province as the true dragon vein of China, symbolically linked to the Qinling Mountains. Because of that symbolism, Xi'an would have become a kind of spiritual marker of the family's power. However, that so-called dragon vein was cut abruptly. Within a matter of months, 3 high-ranking officials from Shanxi, described as the guardians of the dragon vein of the Xie family, reportedly fell almost at the same time. One was taken away by agents of the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection, the CCDI, while he was praying in a temple. Another reportedly fell from a building according to circulating accounts. A third is allegedly detained or may no longer be alive. The common element attributed to the 3 is their direct participation in the construction or management of the mausoleum of Shi Zhonggun, the so-called Dragon Vein project, and their dependence on Shi Yuanping. The narration maintains that this was not a chain of accidental collapses, but a simultaneous and systematic operation aimed at the symbolic core of Shea's power. Within this mosaic, the title of Guardian of the Dragon Vein fits precisely with Fan Hongwei. On November 6th, Australian-based commentator Zhang Wangjung reported that very morning Fun, party secretary in Xi'an and member of the Standing Committee of Shanxi Province, had been detained by the CCDI while praying in the ancient Gwyn Temple. 4 of his secretaries were reportedly arrested with him, and the group was immediately taken to Tianjin. The CCDI confirmed the case on November 7th. According to the same source, a special investigation team was formed for Fun's file. On the night of his detention, disciplinary inspectors in both Shanxi and Xi'an reportedly mobilized to secure control over individuals considered key. The next day, a series of arrests began that, according to the program, involved around 100 people for questioning. Another important figure is Huaong, chairman of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, the CPPCC, in Xi'an and considered a heavyweight cadre within Shea's network, as well as Fun's political ally. His fall was reportedly almost simultaneous. Various sources point out that he suddenly disappeared, with some rumors suggesting the possibility of suicide under pressure, although there is no official confirmation. In any case, multiple channels reportedly agree that is no longer accessible and that he possessed sensitive information about financial flows linked to the Xie family. The detention of Jing Junhai would mark another turning point. On November 11th, several independent sources, including political channels in Shanxi, contacts in the CCDI, and investigative reporters reportedly converged on the same message. A former provincial-level party secretary had been taken into custody and transferred to a CCDI center in Bor. Shortly afterward, the name emerged. It was Jing Junhai. The leaks did not stop there. Researchers consulted reportedly indicated that Jing's case was part of the first wave of a deeper campaign that would affect senior officials directly linked to Xi Yuanping, including leaders of large state-owned enterprises. In other words, the process had already reached the level of central state power. Jing was not just any provincial leader. What would have brought him closer to Shi's inner circle of trust was his management as propaganda chief of Shanxi, especially in connection with the major expansion of the Shi Zhonggun Memorial Site, an ecological memorial park of more than 6,600 hectares, the so-called Dragon Vein Project. It was described as an enormous complex, equivalent, according to local comparisons, to 1/3 of Hong Kong Island and 9 times the area of Sun Yat-sen's mausoleum. From that project, an entire network of protectors of the Dragon Vein would have been built. That same network, according to the narration, is now collapsing node by node. Jing's detention raises a clear question. If even the architects of Shi's symbolic power are no longer safe, how deep does this political earthquake really go? The shock in Cannes reportedly was not limited to local officials. As the investigations went deeper, one name began to appear again and again. That name was Xi Yuanping. According to multiple cited sources, the trigger for this whole chain of reactions was Yao Yijun, propaganda chief of Xi'an, who controlled some of the city's most profitable cultural and tourist assets. Between 2017 and 2021, Yao reportedly supervised the expansion of the Kuzhang cultural and tourism empire, which includes projects such as the Eternal City of the Great Tang Dynasty, the Wild Goose Pagoda Complex, and the ancient walls of Xi'an, sites that generate constant daily income. In 2019, Yao made a decision that raised questions in political and business circles. He approved the bailout through a purchase worth 1,186 million yuan, about 176 million United States dollars, of 2 troubled real estate projects belonging to the HNA Group, which was then on the verge of collapse. For many observers, this was not simply an investment, but rather a form of political tribute. It meant using a state-owned company and public resources to plug the financial holes of a privately owned conglomerate with political connections. At the beginning of 2025, Yao was detained. According to the narrative, at first he displayed a defiant and confident attitude, convinced that nobody could touch him. However, when a central inspection team reopened his file, the situation changed and Yao began to cooperate, revealing names. The name that, according to these leaks, was repeated in almost all asset transfers, fund transfer orders, and sensitive instructions was that of Xi Yuanping. Yu reportedly kept meticulous records of WeChat messages, financial directives, and currency exchange documents that implicated both Yuanping and Vice Premier Lui Guozhong. The numbers outlined are very large. Allegedly, 60% of Yao's illicit profits went to Xi Yuanping, 20% went to Feng Hongwei, party secretary in Xi'an, and the remaining 20% stayed in Yao's own hands. In a single operation, Yao reportedly transferred 180 million Hong Kong dollars, about 23.4 million United States dollars, to Feng's account in Hong Kong. Applying the same percentage distribution, King Yuanping could have received from that single transaction more than 540 million Hong Kong dollars, around 70.2 million United States dollars. And according to the narration, that would be only one example among many. Soon, reports surfaced about the detention of 3 chairmen of large state-owned enterprises, including the head of the China State Shipbuilding Corporation. Each of these cases would again point towards Xi Yuanping. Within the system, Xi Yuanping is described as Prince Yuan, a title that reflects his enormous influence over Shi. Aligning one's career with him would have been an accelerated path to promotion. In the later years of Shi's rule, Yuanping reportedly became the true power behind the National Security Commission, one of the most powerful bodies in the country. His ability to exert influence would extend to almost every sphere, to the point of acquiring an authority close to royal, above entire institutions. In this context, the political earthquake in Shanxi is interpreted as a precision strike carried out by forces opposed to Shi. The impact would have hit the deepest roots of his power and would have cut the family's dragon vein. Other cited information indicates that the operation was jointly driven by former leader Hu Jintao and senior military commander Zhang Yuxia. The fall of Fun Hongwei left a power vacuum at the very heart of Shi's home province. In a system that does not tolerate empty spaces, the logical question was, who would take his place? A new and unexpected name quickly emerged as the favorite. That name was Hu Haifeng, Vice Minister of Civil Affairs and son of former Communist Party General Secretary Hu Jintao. According to various political channels, Hu Haifeng is being considered for two positions at once, Party Secretary in Xi'an and Deputy Party Secretary in Shanxi Province. If this appointment is confirmed, it would represent a very significant symbolic reversal in Chinese elite politics since Shi came to power. According to the program's interpretation, it would mean that the reformist and pro-opening bloc, marginalized for years, is not only returning to the table, but is also reclaiming control of one of Shi's symbolic strongholds. The narrative adds that the tremors have not been limited to Shanxi, but have also spread to Shenzhen, another traditional stronghold of the Shi family. Shenzhen is not only the technological capital of China. For the Shi family, it is part of their personal history. Decades ago, when Shi Zhongxun was politically sidelined during the Dong Xiaoying era, it was the Yan Ying family, influential in Guangdong politics, that took him in Shenzhen. He spent the rest of his life there in a kind of silent confinement. The tensions accumulated during those years between the Shi and Dong family networks have endured across generations. Therefore, when reports emerged that Feng Zhonghua, an ally of Yu Jingsheng, a former member of the Politburo Standing Committee, was about to be appointed party secretary in Shenzhen, the symbolism was evident. Two of Shi's deepest power bases, Shanxi and Shenzhen, would pass into the hands of families perceived as historical rivals or opponents. The political message drawn from this is that China's power landscape is entering a phase of complete generational handover, a comprehensive changing of the guard. Just as the political storyline reaches its most tense point, the episode introduces the darkest element. It is the connection with another mystery, the allegedly rejuvenated appearance of numerous celebrities linked to the Yu Menglong case. From this point forward, the narration warns that the content may be especially disturbing. The testimony is presented of an informant who claims to have worked undercover in an online fraud compound in Southeast Asia. According to his account, women over 40 years of age, victims of human trafficking and taken to these facilities, would not only be forced to participate in online scams, but would also be forced into surrogate pregnancies. The babies born from these pregnancies would be called piglets in the operator's internal jargon. The witness's account maintains that, once born, bone marrow material would be extracted from these babies to produce regenerative stem cells, which would then be turned into extremely expensive substances marketed as anti-aging treatments. The informant, who presents himself as an anti-fraud activist, appears with his face covered for security reasons and explains that he must avoid certain explicit terms to prevent his account from being shut down. The program clarifies that, at that time, it does not have independent means to verify all of this information, and therefore reproduces the testimony in essence so that the audience can evaluate it according to its own judgment. The narrative describes how women who worked in nightlife venues would be the most likely to be drawn into these foreign compounds due to their perceived greater boldness. Once there, the youngest and most attractive would be assigned to attend clients in adult entertainment environments, while those over 40 would remain in front of keyboards, managing online scams and at the same time being subjected to embryo implantation processes by in vitro fertilization. According to the description, 2 or even 3 embryos at a time would be implanted in these women, with the aim of maximizing the number of births. Each baby, once born, would reportedly be sold to biotechnology parks or life science institutes. The witness states that a piglet could reach an approximate value of 3 million yuan, and that, in the case of a woman carrying 3 embryos, the annual profit could reach 9 million. The babies would be grouped in special rooms, not left on the floor but kept in glass cases, as if they were laboratory animals. They would be fed there and would only be taken out briefly when staff cleaned the room. The crucial part of the testimony focuses on the moment when the babies reach approximately 6 months of age. At that point, according to the description, technicians would access the spinal area with a small tool, make an opening, and insert a needle to extract the fluid from the inside of the bones, taking advantage of the hollow structure of certain bone sections. In this way, they would obtain the component they call the growth factor, which would later be used to cultivate regenerative stem cells. These cells would then be infused intravenously into clients, with the promise of giving them a younger appearance. The informant shows what he presents as real advertisements from a Cambodia Life Sciences Institute, where overnight rejuvenation is promised, and where it is even suggested that certain treatments could extend life expectancy up to 120 years. According to the witness, a single bone marrow extraction from one child could be refined into 3 vials of highly purified material. Each vial would be sold on the market for about 5 million yuan, so that one extraction round every 6 months would generate 15 million yuan per child. These products would be aimed almost exclusively at celebrities and very wealthy individuals. The program shows images of the website of that institute, where it is stated that its headquarters are in Cambodia, but the site offers only 2 languages, simplified Chinese and English. On its official Facebook page, the listed address corresponds to the headquarters of the Prince Group on Diamond Island in Phnom Penh. In the corporate section of the site, the main service displayed was neonatal stem cell storage. Among its 6 main sections, the Hunan Province Cell Preparation Center and the Hunan Province Tissue and Cell Bank were highlighted. The 4 qualification certificates shown on the page, according to the archived material presented by the program, had reportedly been issued by Chinese bodies, including the Ministry of Science and Technology, the Ministry of Finance, and local authorities in Hunan. Later, this information was removed from the website. The question the program raises is whether this is a purely private company or a project with a state or mixed nature, given the type of certifications. In an episode broadcast the previous week, the program had devoted an investigation to the Prince Group and its founder, Cai Qi, who is wanted by the governments of the United States and the United Kingdom. The thesis presented is that Cai Qi acts as a financial representative for certain high-level interests in China and that he may maintain personal ties with the Xie family. The website of the Cambodia Life Sciences Institute reportedly listed, in an earlier version, several partner institutions, including Hunan Normal University, Xiangya Hospital, Xiangya Hospital No. 2, Xiangya Hospital No. 3, and the first and second affiliated hospitals of Nanhua University, all involved in stem cell or regenerative medicine projects. Xiangya Hospital No. 2 is highlighted in particular, as it has already appeared in news reports related to illicit organ extraction operations. Its main shareholder, Ji Guangguang, is described as a grandson of former Prime Minister Li Peng and one of the principal suspects in the Yu Menglong case. The narration concludes that the truth Yuanlong allegedly tried to expose with his life continues to break through and to connect apparently scattered elements into a single expanding puzzle. The power networks that, according to this account, would be linked to his death are shown in the process of collapsing, and the political earthquake shaking China is now presented as inevitable. For those who still trust that the system can correct itself from within, the program offers a final reflection. The structure described is presented as a machine that has produced some of the darkest chapters of contemporary society. Only by stepping away from that structure, the narrator concludes, could China aspire to a different future. The closing invites the audience to continue staying informed about power shifts within the Communist Party and the evolution of relations between China and the United States. Viewers are called upon to support the vision of a new China without communism, and to subscribe in order to continue bringing the truth to light, thus maintaining the overall tone of denunciation and ongoing monitoring of this political narrative.